Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. The morning show continues. My pleasure to take over now the hosting after my colleagues from the business perspective have been on for the last hour or so. Welcome back. And as I promised you earlier this morning, we'll be delving a little bit in the field of education. And we have in the studio Dr. Dorian Barrow, Dean of Faculty of Education at Galen University. That's what it is, sir?
Yes, Dean of the Faculty of Education, Galen University.
Well, welcome to our studio. Welcome to the coach.
Well, thank you very much.
And we should be joined via Zoom. We'll have Janelle Cayetano, who's a student. We'll be talking to her as well as soon as we make contact. In the meantime, Dr. Barrow, good morning again and welcome. Describe for me, what is the education program at Galen University? What makes it different from other
Well, Galen
areas?
University, Ernesto, is, I guess, like Love FM, the premier education provider, teacher education provider in the country. We're small, but a very powerful institution. Our provost, Dr. Cynthia Yaird, described it at our graduation last Sunday as having the butterfly effect, small wave creating significant impact. We prepare teachers to function in the primary school level. We prepare teachers to function in the secondary school level, and we prepare school leaders. So we have programs in elementary education, in secondary education, and in education leadership. As you know, Ernesto, the dawn of the 21st century revealed new and challenging landscape for teachers and for school leaders. This challenging landscape was really about what are the new knowledge and skills teachers need in order to practice their craft effectively. But it also reveals something other than that is very, 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 very significant, which is that it revealed that we had to begin to think about new ways of thinking about things like child development and adolescent development, new concepts of families and communities, new constructs about content itself, content knowledge itself, and how to teach content knowledge, assessment, and assessment literacy. It forced us to think about new ways of management, how we're going to manage the classroom, how we're going to be motivating the students, new ways of thinking about instructional practices, and most importantly, new ways of thinking about professional development for teachers. Now, recently, those challenges that we have been responding to adequately at Galen have been exacerbated by the initiative of the government of Belize, the Ministry of Education, to essentially change the way how we do schooling in Belize. Radically change the way how we do schooling. This is a very ambitious project. It's a project that we endorse 100%. And what they want to do is to change what we have traditionally done in schools and to do a new way of educating our children and adolescents in what they call a competency-based education system. Competency-based education system. Now, they are essentially asking schools to reimagine themselves, to reconstruct themselves from what I guess we would call schools to what they are calling them professional learning communities. And they want them to reconstruct themselves following some principles, about 7 very, very important principles of competency-based education. Competency-based education is a particular design, a particular approach to education that is based on these principles. For example, one of the principles is about the whole thing of student-centered learning. Student-centered learning. Now, that has been around for a long time, but the new focus right now is to let schools be less about teachers and more about students, right? And responding to the particular student needs. It's no longer about just selecting, right? We raised up in a system where it was about the best. It was a selection process. And if you didn't make it, you didn't make it.
And that best was decided how many subjects I can memorize.
That is correct.
And how many exams I can pass.
And you can pass. How many exams you can pass, right?
Right.
It didn't have anything to do, or it had very little to do with what you were able to demonstrate that you could do.
I need a little more explanation on that. Please continue.
Yes. So it is now about what can we do to get away from this selection idea of just a few of us raising to the top, and trying to see if we could have a system where we develop everybody, right? Where everybody is developed. So it's an inclusive approach to schooling and education, which means, of course, that we will have to have a different approach to assessment, right? Assessment will no longer have to be about tests, right? It will have to be about performance, right? There are so many ways in which we can demonstrate what we know, right, other than just a paper and pencil test. And the competency-based approach is to say, well, okay, show me what you know, right, by producing something, by doing something, right?
You mean instead of taking a test, I will do a project?
That is correct.
A project on what, like
a project that
in math,
demonstrates
a math project,
what you.
or
That is correct. A math project, an engineering project, a project in communication, where you demonstrate, right, via this tangible output what you in fact know. Of course, in order to do that, you have to know it, right?
you have to understand the subject, and I think that's where it comes to the understanding.
That is
correct. You can memorize something, you can memorize a whole book and not understand it.
That is correct. That is correct. I remember.
So that's where it's going.
I remember, for example, my experience with learning Spanish was essentially just to memorize things, right? It was not placed in a context, right? And yes, I passed my exam, but
when you hit Spain, you can't
speak Spanish.
have a little problem getting around that. Yeah, go ahead.
So the ministry is asking schools to reimagine themselves using these 7 design principles of competency-based learning, right? In addition to that, they're asking teachers to teach students some what they call some macro competencies. It's some dispositions that they want them to have. Each student going through the primary and secondary school system should be taught these 7 macro competencies. Just to give you an example of a few of them, one of them is the whole thing about the sacred nature of the human person. The sacred nature of the human person. Now, in our days, that was something that we were taught at home. or that we were taught in church, right? They are saying that they want that to be taught in schools, right? They want every single child who goes through the education system to have a good understanding and to become competent in that construct.
I guess to what? To kind of get to know yourself? Is that it? Or
It is about character development, right? About character development, and they believe that this is one way that can enhance the whole process of character development and that happening in schools. Emotional intelligence, right? Getting students to develop areas that teachers before never had to work with in any serious way, right? And you had to, things like persistence, right? Things like believing in yourself, things like learning how to reflect, right? Things like learning how to be empathetic, understanding others, putting yourself in others' shoes, right? Those were things that were not the center
those
stage
are more like
of
spiritual
teaching, right?
things, or
that is correct.
Because that all has to do with morality and values and things like that.
That is
so
correct. So these are some of the core competencies that the teachers are supposed to teach: critical thinking and innovative thinking, how to collaborate, right? The whole thing of multicultural appreciation. We live in a multicultural society. And this one is a big one, the whole thing of digital literacy, right? Very, very, very critical. And then, of course, understanding the whole the whole thing of advocating for human sustainable development.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. After you've said all that, let me welcome Janelle Cayetano, who's a student at the university. Good morning, my dear. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, my dear. Have you been listening to what the professor has been saying, especially covering the new curriculum, and you're a student? What's your reaction? Okay, let me ask you first. Tell us first what year student you are and a little about yourself before we go into the questions.
Okay, so like you said, my name is Janelle Cayetano, and I am a leadership student at Galen University. Before that, I did my bachelor's in business education. And so as an educator, Galen has provided for me numerous ways in which I have grown as an educator. And I listened to him talk about competency-based education, and that's an area which I am completely immersed in. So when I joined Ocean Academy in 2016, they were already doing competency-based learning. So joining the university and doing my internship, I had the opportunity to learn those pedagogical knowledge, and then merge them together, what I've been learning at Ocean Academy, in order for me to become a better teacher when it comes to competency-based learning. Of course, I needed to gain those knowledge at Galen University when it comes to the pedagogical side. And then I have already been immersed into competency at Ocean Academy. And if I should talk a little bit about Ocean Academy and what they do in terms of competency-based, basically at Ocean Academy, we believe in what we call universal education. So we believe that all students can learn. And in 2014, my principal, Ms. Heidi Curry, introduced competency-based learning to her staff. Basically, she's a visionary researcher, and she saw the need for a change in traditional education, and so she started this at her school. And so the main focus is for students to develop skills that they can use in the real world. or in the workplace or for their future education. And when we talk about skills, we're talking about how how we can assess students' mastery of those skills.
So let me ask you, are you still a student or are you teaching now?
I am a teacher and a student.
And a student,
I'm doing
okay.
the leadership program.
Okay. So you do your studies online, I suspect?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a convenience. You are, let me say, you entered the field on the threshold of this whole new way of teaching. But how does a teacher who has been a teacher for the last 20 years change? Because this seems to me it's a radical change.
It is a radical change.
It's a radical change.
And the new teacher has to be reskilled.
Exactly.
Reskilled. And that is what I'm hoping this program is about, to say that we have just done gap analysis between what we currently offer and what we have been offering and what the new state of affairs requires. Mm-hmm. And we found that what we were offering is moderately aligned with what currently exists. So what we had to do was to adjust our programs so that it becomes fully aligned with a competency-based initiative.
But how much does a teacher have to change? It sounds to me like it's, and I go back to the word radical, the way probably even approaches the students first thing in the morning is a change from before.
There is.
You don't walk in and say,
open
your books to page 5 and we're going to read so and so.
And Janelle can talk about how they approach.
Yeah.
How they approach it at Ocean Academy.
Yeah, Janelle,
one of the reasons why I asked her to
and I think that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Is that they are actually living this thing, and they have been doing it for 20 years. Yes.
What's a typical day like, Janelle? In your class? When I grew up, I had to walk in and, in primary, memorize my 12 times table, which I used to hate, and memorize nouns and pronouns and things like that, then take an exam to see how is it different now in your class?
Well, basically we start our morning with what we call a morning circle. So basically students come in and we do a morning circle. This morning circle is basically, because it depends, each school will have a different approach. It depends on what you want your student profile to be, meaning that when your students graduate from your high school, you want them to come out with certain things. And so I believe that's how my principal had to look at it. She had to look at what it is that I want these students to walk away with when they graduate. And so we have something we call the OA way, which has to do with, the first step, being mindful. And so that's how we start off our day. We start off our day with what we call a morning circle, where students are able to start off their day on the right path, meaning that we have what we call affirmation and breath work, just because, students are coming from home with so many things. And so in order to calm them down and start off their day, that's how we start our day with a morning circle. And we do this school-wide. And when we can't do it school-wide, we do it individual within our classes. And so that's the first way we start off our day. And then students going to their normal classes as usual. But another big thing, go ahead.
Let me take again, I'm from a very old school, reading, writing, arithmetic. All right, how do you handle something like reading or communication? Is there such a subject now as reading? or do you? How does the student improve their reading skills and comprehension skills now under the new competency-based learning, as opposed to we used to do it in the old days? They give you a book, you read it, and then you discuss it, you ask questions about it. Is that still done? Is that
Well, the goal is still there, right? Where we want students to read. And we don't only want them to read, we want them to be able to understand what they read. And one of the things that we missed was generating in us the love for reading.
right?
So the whole approach to reading now is holistic, right? It's holistic. It's not just about phonetics and pre-phonetics and vocabulary, but it's also about comprehension. It's about getting students to learn how to listen and how to share, how to communicate effectively, right, with others, and how to do reflection, how to essentially communicate with themselves, and how to articulate their thoughts as clearly as possible. So the task of reading has become a lot more involved and a lot more complex. And we have people like Dr. Aileen Harrison, who specializes in reading, right? That gets the teacher to do a lot of exciting things. Teaches the teacher how to get the students to not only learn to read, but to learn to love reading.
Let's get Janel's input. Janel, how do you handle that? How do you handle students so that they have an interest in reading, they read more, and they comprehend?
Okay, so for us, reading is not only done in English class or reading class. It's cross-curricular. I mean, reading happens in everything. So we
That's a
look
good one. I like that.
For that students read with everything that they do. Basically, at Ocean Academy, we do have a reading program, and students are allowed to choose what they want to read, because definitely you can't love reading if they're telling you what to read, right? So that's one of the unique things about Ocean Academy. Students are able to choose what they want to read in their reading class, not in their literature class. You know, there might be books that they have to read, but in their reading class, they're able to choose what books they want to read. And so that in itself inspires students to want to read. And then within cross-curricular, all the classes, students are encouraged to continue looking at all the things that comes with reading, your grammar, your spelling, all those sorts of things. So it's not only taught in English, but it's across the board. So each teachers are looking for, making sure that this is done across the board in terms of how the students read and comprehend. We have something called 21st Century Skills. And that's a class taught at Ocean Academy. It's like the backbone of everything, because what you guys would call cross-curricular, these students are learning the school-wide competencies within that course. And so this definitely allows students to, look at those skills that Dr. Barra was talking about, those virtues and all those types of things. It goes, it's all meshed together in this course, and so students are able to practice this on a daily basis along with all the other courses, because there's the subject competencies and then the school-wide competencies as well that
Well, Janelle, thank you for that, and of course your preparation has come through Galen University. Dr. Barrow, just tell us how, a present teacher who wants to upgrade his or her skills, or a new student, they're both welcome, I suspect, or whatever level you are at.
Yes,
is available at Galen.
Yes, they're at the primary or secondary level. We are still accepting applications you can come and join the full program itself. We have bachelor's degrees program in primary education, bachelor's degrees program in secondary education. We have a postgraduate certificate program in education leadership. And most importantly, we have a diploma program in pedagogy, in which these new approaches to teaching things like reading. For example, one of the courses in that program is called Reading Across the Curriculum, and it teaches you how to teach reading, really, whether you're a math teacher or an English teacher or a computer science teacher, and how that could be thread across the curriculum. Applications are welcome. Of course, if you want to do it in September, so you could either join the program fully or you could come as what we call a provisional student, where you just want to, for example, take a course in, let's say, reading across the curriculum, right? Or you just want to take a course in competency-based learning, or you just want to take a course in assessment, because assessment is also a big thing now, where the ministry is insisting on performance-based assessment as opposed to just paper and pencil tests.
Sounds like a plan.
you can we're available on the web. We have a web page, www.galen.edu.bz, right? Or you could call our admissions office at 824-3226.
Sounds like a plan, and that's a way to improve your skills, of course, through Galen University. Dr. Barrow, thank you for joining us this morning, sir.
It's an honor and privilege. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And keeping us informed, this whole new curriculum thing. I'm sure teachers are finding it challenging in some areas. I'm sure they are. It's a whole new approach. I'm thinking of me. I mean, how I studied in the old days, and now this whole new method. But it sounds like it can work.
Yes,
you know,
yes, and well, as Janelle is showing that how it is working in one institution. And my message is to let teachers know, practicing teachers, novice teachers, is that help is available in order to help you to work through this. And the same is true for school leaders. Principals, vice principals, department heads, people who want to lead institution in this new environment. Help is available at Galen University.
Dr. Dorian Barrow, Dean of Faculty of Education at Galen University. And Janelle, thank you for joining us. I suspect you are in San Pedro?
Kikaka.
Where are you?
Keycocker.
In Keycocker, sorry. Keycocker. There you go. I get my schools mixed up. Well, thanks again. And both of you lucky, one in Kaya and one in Keycocker. Yeah, well, thanks again.
Thanks.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back, and we'll have our guest coming in from Santiago Castillo Limited.